All right. Looks like we're up and ready. We're ready to roll. All right. Everybody give me a quick second. Y'all know on Mondays I have to go through Facebook and actually find what I'm supposed to find as if I don't know where it is, but I don't see it. Okay, I do see it. All right. So here's what pastor's doing, what everyone should do. I'm on Facebook. I've gone to the church's page, and right up under the live stream here, there's a button that says share. So that's what I'm about to hit. So I can share this to my feed, and that's what I want everybody else to do. So go ahead, take a minute now, family, and hit the share button, and let's make sure we get this to as many people as possible because we have a very, very special guest tonight. All right. Post. I did actually much quicker than usually on this Monday. It usually takes me about 10 minutes to figure that little piece out. So we did pretty good today. All right. Hello, family. Hello, everyone. Come on in. Come on in. It's good to see you. Let me do some recognitions here tonight. Hello, Kelly. Good to see you. We've got Julia that's on. All right. Lacey. Good to see you, Lacey. Hello, hello. Raiden Matthews, how are you? Good to see you. Wait. Okay. If we can get an elder or someone with creative to reach out to Raiden, that'd be great. We're praying for you, Raiden. All right. Good to see everyone. Come on in. Come on in. We see you're still coming in. Come on. Tonight is the night. I'm super excited. Super excited. Please forgive me if I look orange. I did not set my lights up tonight. It just did not get myself together today, but I'm super excited for our special guest. I'm almost starstruck. I'm so happy. I'm so happy. I am so happy that I literally can't wait to introduce who we have with us tonight. So, hey, Dream. So tonight, as you all know, we have been in the series Intentional Creativity, and I've been gone for a minute, but the teaching squad has been holding it down. Let's give them some kudos for how they have been teaching us and leading us through this entire summer and in this series. I'm so excited for what God is doing through them. But here's how we got to, we knew we were doing this as our year of intentional growth, so intentionality in everything. And so throughout the summer, intentional creativity has been our theme for Monday nights. And so I was looking for a source in a book that would kind of help us, that would kind of bring us together and be a thought leader for us in this. And I just happened to be on, I believe it's Pastor Charlie Dates, his Instagram, and he had this book he's holding up, and I think it was a video that he was saying you should get this book. So I'm on a plane. I cannot hear what he's saying, but I see what he's saying, and I just screenshot that. So I said, it seems like I would want to see this. Let there be art. And then I went to her Instagram. And so on the next flight, I'm spending the entire flight just looking at excerpts that she has from her book. And I'm like, I think this is the book. I think this is the book I've been looking for. And so then when I land, I get it, I download the book, and I get the book. I start reading, and I'm on page 5. On page 5, this author takes my soul and shakes it back into significance with this little thing I'm about to read for you. So let me set the groundwork. Everyone knows I'm a pastor, and before I gave my life completely over to ministry, music was my life. And being able to create musically, that's what I went to Florida State for. I knew I was going to go to New York, and I was going to Broadway. I was going to get an EGOT and all of that before I realized God had another path, but he'll still pay me back one day in some way. But however, I've always, because my principal instrument was voice, I've always had to have a creative partner. because I could hear songs, I could hear parts, but I could not play. And so I've always had a creative partner. And then I end up losing my creative partner. But before I lose a creative partner, I really lose my drive to create just from the hustle and bustle of ministry and doing ministry. And so almost was accepting like, well, maybe it's just not, it's not for me anymore. And, I just, I'll do what I'm called to do and that'll be it. And then I start reading this book and I read this part where she's saying why she wrote this book. And she starts talking to me. She says, I imagine you would find yourself in a curious place of questioning, in a place of wondering if the cosmos really is parting wide open and welcoming you to partake in the age-old practice of welding wonder and making things. I knew you would find yourself in a place of wanting to make things, not merely for the sake of making a name for yourself, but more so for the fact that not doing so might reduce you to an exhale, a breath that came into this world and quickly departed. And that grabbed my soul. I tears started welling up in my eyes, and I was like, yeah, that's exactly uh, how I feel. And it shook me, and it woke something up in me. And then just the more I kept reading, the more significant I felt to God, the more significant I felt to the world. And then I just began and I wrote something down on my phone. And I just said, if you're waiting for people's acceptance or popularity to share what God has given you, then you have no idea why God gave you what he gave you. You can't wait for people to come to the party and signed up to be a fan of yours to release what you have, because God already signed you up. He chose you and he trusted you with whatever gift you have. So create now, do it now, release what you have now. And maybe one day people will join the party. But at least if you and God have joined this party of releasing whatever it is you have and doing whatever you've been put on this earth to do, then ladies and gentlemen, that's enough. And that's what the author of this book, Let There Be Heart, Rachel Marie Kang, not King, y'all, Kang, that's what she did for me. And tonight, she is here. So, ladies and gentlemen, I wanted to tell you the why. And tonight, I want to introduce you to the who. Rachel Marie Kang. Welcome.
Hey, I am so honored and thrilled to be with all of you tonight. And just like I said minutes earlier, we're doing this together, right? I wrote this book, right? But I'm walking this out, I'm living this out. So it's my joy to be here tonight with you.
Thank you so much. So tell, for someone that's joining us tonight and they haven't been with us throughout the summer, tell us, what was your inspiration for writing this book? What was your goal?
Wow. Okay. So originally, the goal was to write a book for just writers. I had been working for a couple of years on a book that I thought would take the shape and the form of just inspiring those creative words, right? And long story short, when I finally came to a place where I had an editor who was interested, that editor spoke a word over this project, and it ended up being a word over my life. And she said, let's zoom out. Let's go broad. Instead of just writing to writers, let's write to all creatives, right? Let's write a book on creativity. And my first reaction was, I don't know if I'm the person for that. I'm a writer's writer. I can write on writing. I'm not sure if I can speak into dance and painting, these things that I'm not a professional in. And so I had to think about that. But the more that I thought about it, I realized, you know what? The thread of creativity has been all throughout my life. There has been a curiosity and a passion for that practice. And it became really clear to me, yes, you are the person to write this book, because of the way that I cultivated creativity in the secret places. And so that's kind of a fun backstory that I love to share. This wasn't the dream. This wasn't the goal. But through collaboration and partnership, my editor said, hey, there's something more here. And are you up for the challenge? So, yeah.
Well, thank you for saying yes to the more, because I mean, it speaks, it goes way beyond, so many different categories that people would think creatives, are categorized in. And it just speaks to the soul of so many people and so many walks of life. So thank you for that. I'm going to introduce Renita. Renita's going to kind of be our moderator tonight, and she's going to, the teaching squad is going to ask questions. And as you all can see, we have Keisha with us, we have Elder Gloria with us, we have Elder Tiffany, Carrie, and Julia, all elders and ministers, and Renita here at Love and Faith Community Church. And we're so grateful for them as the teaching squad. Brother Carlos is not with us today. He is working. The homie is working. He's on the road. But Carlos is so cool. And we just love Carlos. That's our dude. He'd be like, yeah, Pastor, I'm not going to be there tomorrow. But man, I love God. And I love everything going on. You just got to love Carlos. And so, yes, Renita.
Hello, everyone. So as Pastor mentioned, we have several questions that we have prepared just to guide us in conversation tonight, but we will ask that if you have any questions as we're talking, if anything comes up or anything is sparked in your mind, please feel free to ask in the comments, and we will do our best to make sure that we add those questions to the conversation so that we're all having one big conversation here tonight. So as Pastor said, I'm kind of serving as a moderator tonight, so I'm going to hand it over to our first teacher to ask a question, and I will, of course, jump in and out as necessary. So for any,
okay.
There we go. Go ahead.
All right. So I'm Minister Carrie Joseph. I can say that your book has encouraged me because I think of myself as a creative, but creativity don't necessarily need to take breaks. I don't have to wait until I have a project needs to be released or a song that needs to be written for a specific artist. I can just create just to create because that's what God called me to. I can connect with him daily. Every day I wake up, I should be able to create. And that's one of the things that I learned from this book, that it's like we doing a disservice to this world if we don't create, what God put inside of us, and bring it out, you know what I'm saying? So it could be shared and be loved. And one of the most important things that I kept is, it says it's not a matter if it's right or wrong. The art is not if it's right or wrong art. The only thing that you need to consider is if it points back to God, then that's it. And if it points back to God, then it's right and it's good. So that's one of the things I learned from this. So thank you for that. And I want to ask you this question. As an artist, I have a lot of influence from different people. Pastor is one of them, as far as lyrically. So I want to ask you, what has been one of your greatest influences as far as when it comes to creativity in your life? What has been one of the greatest influences when it comes to creativity?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for that encouragement. And yeah, that's one of the things that I kind of have to keep coming back to myself is does this have a theme of redemption? What is this teaching me here? What is this showing me about our choices, my choices, this person's choice? And so that's definitely a question that I keep coming back to, because I feel like that's one of the biggest questions when it comes to art, movies, books. It's is this good or bad? We're banning books left and right. It's is there a theme of redemption? Tell me, so thank you for that. And just one of my creative influences, man, I don't know if I can just pick one, but I'll keep I'll do a few and keep them short. Definitely people. I can go to an airport, I can go to a cafe and just people watch and just get ideas and inspiration. The people in my life, I'm particularly inspired by people who suffer. And so just watching them persevere or watching them struggle and suffer, that inspires me, right? To ask questions like, what is this all coming to? And how do we heal through the midst of this? And how do we praise through the midst of this? I also am I hope this speaks to someone out there, but I view my own interior world as a source of inspiration. And I'm really glad to say that, because I think for so many people, we always think that we have to find the inspiration outside of us. And I have come to confidence in believing that, like, God moves inside of us, the Spirit does things inside of us. And so if we just allow ourselves to ruminate and think, we might be onto something, you know? So I like to say that my interior world, you know, I get a lot of influence there. And nature lately, especially, love watching the seasons, the power of the elements, connecting those back to the characteristics of God. And also, just like a little shameless plug, I'm also finding relief in watching the seasons change and relating those to my own creative seasons. And so in seasons where I see myself maybe not being inspired and not creating, I remind myself, okay, in the natural world, there's a winter, there's a time for everything. And so just being inspired by that, even in those creative lows, you know? So those are just a few.
Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Well, hi, I'm Elder Mathis, and I like what you said about the season, because I really pulled that out of the book. What I got out of that is that there's a time and a season for all things. And so I really was inspired about, we're going to grow and be in cycles in our lives. I might not be able to do everything the way I used to do it, but can I still continue to offer the gift in another way? And that just helped me to be more reflective of it. Also helped me to define the season and not to try to struggle to continue to do it this way. Well, I have to look at, now I have certain limitations, or maybe some things in my life have changed, and now what's on my plate is totally different from years ago. But can I still take what I have and what I've been given and utilize it to still bring glory to God and to still contribute to the well-being of others? So I really walked away with that personal insight, and it also helps me to be less stressful and be content in where I am, not to compare myself. It's just opened up so many areas of growth with that. So I appreciate that. And my first question to you, which may be a hard question as well as the first one, but if you had to pick a favorite chapter, because all of them were good, but which one would it be and why?
Okay, yeah, this is definitely another hard one, but I do have a chapter that tends to overshine the others for me personally. I know everyone has their favorite, but for me, it's chapter 7, Let There Be Fairy Tales, which is where I talk about fiction and the importance of stories. I remember when I figured out that that was going to be a chapter, when I firmly decided, I think I need to write about fiction, about stories. And I remember thinking, does this matter? Like, is this going to resonate with people? Is it really that, as important as some of these other things that I explore? And I actually end up saying in that chapter, there's a portion where I say, it is not frivolous to, be fascinated with fiction. And I had to write that to believe it myself. Because for me, stories have always saved my life. I remember moments in my life where I was lost and far from the good path, right? And stories helped bring me back. I mean, one of those stories was Transformers, Optimus Prime. He's like such a mirror for who God is, right? And I just remember, I write about that in chapter 7. I remember just a particular season where I was like, God, I can't hear you. I can't see who you are, what you are for. And fiction helped me to see the truth of God. It gave that illustration. And we tell stories all the time. In sermons, you use illustrations. Yeah. Jesus told parables. All of us watch movies and read books. And so that is my favorite. So much so that as I wrote that chapter, the fiction ideas that I myself had gotten all through my life, I said, you know what? It's time to write my own fiction and to believe in these stories that I have been, creating in my head, and to kind of explore them and see, are these stories going to illuminate redemption in a way that could be relatable to people that might not never open up a Bible, So yeah, chapter 7 is my favorite. I obviously love the whole book, but that's a favorite of mine right now.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And I am a teacher, and I teach pre-K, and we read fairy tales all the time.
Yes.
So you just gave me my energy for going back to school. Thank you.
Yes. So good. And kids are the best at it. Kids are the best, and we learn from them. We learn from them. So
yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that.
I just wanted to chime in. I am a sci-fi guy, so I believe in living in that land. I respect superpowers except for elasticity. I never enjoy that superpower with people, but the fact that's your favorite, and there's so many people that kind of relate to the fantasy of it all. But for those that can't relate, as far as, especially some of us, we have a foot in in the church or in the Bible, and another foot in the world, so it's a little balanced. And some of us, we think anytime you hear fairy tale, that's not of God. It's myths and all of those things. And the truth is, the Bible, even though it's about real life, it's one of the most mystical, most fairy tale, most sci-fi type of books. There's people walked on water. Yes. So there is this. I believe the Bible within itself, just the way that Rachel writes, it invites us to embrace that fairy tale of life, because some of the most wild fantasies actually are dreams that can come true. And now Rachel is going to release a sci-fi book for me. She's doing that just for me. God loves us.
Just give me a couple years. No, I love what you said. My husband and I talk about this all the time. The Bible is a love story. The Bible is an action story. The Bible is a horror story. I mean, come on, we don't have to go down that path right now, but the story, there's genocide and just everything, crucifixion. So yeah, I'm with you. I love everything that you said. And yeah, just give me a couple years. All right.
Hi, so I'm Keisha. Everybody's been sharing their favorite chapter. I'm a social worker in real life. So my favorite one was actually Let There Be Bareness, because vulnerability, you need it in order to create. So my question to you, there was something you said in the book on page 29, and you said God calls for you, but he also comes to you. And that kind of was my favorite. And it opened me up. And as a writer myself and writing poems and just different things, how did you find a safe space to publish your writing? I know a lot of writers feel like it's like sleeping in their sheets, and it's something that's really intimate for them. So how did you find that place? And did you create the book first, or did you create the publishing company first?
Oh, that's a good question. And I love the conversation that y'all were having about this phrase. Like, you vamped on it for a while. And I was right there with you listening. I actually remember when I wrote that line, and I remember when it came out, I guess I typed that line, and I remember thinking, oh, how come no one talks about this, right? Like, he calls us, but he also comes to us, and just the paradox of that, and how that's so parallel, like, it's just beautiful. And so, yeah, I think I first found safety in creating in the private place, right? I'm a journaler, and so it meant so much to me for that that to be the first chapter, to kind of lead the way with Let There Be Art with that chapter on bareness and journaling. And so for many, many years, you know, for those of you that journal, you're not necessarily writing and then sharing those pages publicly, right? That's the private place. And so for many years I was journaling, and then you know, just prayers and entries, and then I would journal poems, and then I would journal songs, and then I would take those songs and I'd you know, I'd get some free passes from my from my teachers in high school, and then I'd go to the music annex and play by myself, you know. And so there were just many years where I poured out my heart and poured out my thoughts and practiced these giftings in the private place. You know, I didn't necessarily think to myself, oh, I'm writing poems, I should do something with this, I should go perform on a stage. No, that was for me and God only, you know. So I think when it got to the point where you know, I'll also say I ended up studying creative writing in college, but even at that point, you know, there wasn't really a goal to be famous or published or public. I wanted to be on the other side. I wanted to be publishing books for other people. And so when I found myself in this, you know, with this opportunity to put out a book, I felt ready. I felt like I had practiced this craft to the point that I felt comfortable in it. I felt like I had the time and the chance to explore themes and topics and things that mattered to me. So I kind of knew what was important to me and what I really wanted to say. And then I think you guys will appreciate this story, actually. So that journey had been, I mean, you know, we're talking childhood to middle school to then high school to then studying creative writing in college. And then from college to this point, it's been about, gosh, how long has it been? 12 years. And so for 10 years, I'd been practicing writing. For a few of those years, I dabbled in, what does a book proposal look like? Let me go to this writers conference here. In 2020, when COVID started, I gave up this pursuit. I put a pause on the book writing. I put a pause on the project. And I said, you know what? This seems like a really good time to focus on my family, right? And that summer, what else was happening in the world around COVID-19, right? We lost George Floyd. And I know for myself, and I know for others as well, that was like something was just unleashed that summer for a lot of people everywhere, right? And in that moment, there were a few other things in my own personal life, but in that moment, I remember being like, okay, it's time to start. Like, I don't need to write to soothe anymore. It's time to write to speak to people and to say some things. And so that summer I had written some things, and at that time, an editor saw one of those writings, and that's how I got picked up. I wasn't pursuing getting published at the time. I had laid that down. And in the summer of 2020, that was when it was, you know, it got picked up. So what made me feel comfortable with going with the editor that I went with, this book was published by Revell Books, which is a part of Baker Bookhouse Publishing. My editor, I felt safe with the way that she allowed me to be lyrical and poetic in my writing. Something for my whole life, I always thought, oh, this is too much. It's, you know, it's too lyrical, it's too poetic, it's too cryptic. Nobody's gonna understand what I'm saying. It's not flat out, it's not didactic, right? And she picked me for that reason. And I remember the whole team, you know, specifically said, we need poetry, we need the poets. And so with that being there, you know, what they were looking for, it was easy for me to feel safe taking that next leg of my journey. So that's a little bit, you know, tried to mix in a little bit there to show you kind of just how that pathway really played out.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Elder Tiffany Timmons. It is, I know for everybody, an honor right now to just to have a chance to just to speak with you. And thank you for sharing that, even just with knowing that this is something that you put down. And it's so interesting how God does things where we put things down and then we find ourselves picking them back up again. And then the next time around we pick them up, it inspires so many people. So, but you've inspired me in so many ways, in more ways than one. And I'm a teacher as well. I'm a fifth grade teacher, was soon to be a reading coach at a new school. And one thing, yes, one thing, even as a teacher, it's kind of almost shameful to say as a teacher, I don't read a whole bunch of books because I'm just, but this was one of the books where it's like, as I started to read it, it just felt like home. It just felt like home. There was so much that was said. It was so much that I resonated with. There were so many things that I've always, and Pastor said hit it on the head when he said significance. I saw myself in a place of significance again in God, and it's just, and again, I can really ramble on and on. I feel like I'm rambling now, so I'm gonna kind of go ahead and get to my point here. But I wanted to ask you a question rather, and I think a lot of that is because I think how you present yourself as well, like you're telling us you're living this out as well. It's not that you've arrived already, but you're in a place of saying, I'm living this out. I'm on this journey as well. And I can resonate with you on that. But also as I read your book, there was one chapter and so many, but one particular chapter kind of made me at a place of pause. The chapter on movement. And it's got a whole nother revelation on that particular chapter, because in that one, you really talk about, in spite of how you physically feel, even when you wrote about the fact that you were in a lot of physical pain, your body felt like it failed you. But even in the words that we read on the paper, those are words that you didn't write with a pen, but you spoke those into something and actually had them written out for you. That was like, whoa. But even in that, I heard God is reminding me to, whatever it may be, to get up and move again, to get up and move. Has there ever, or is there a chapter where you almost was at a place of pause before writing it because you knew you would have to hold yourself accountable to the words that you release on a piece of paper, if that makes sense? So I know when I read that one, I was like, oh, I want to encourage people in that way, but then it's like, now it's my turn to live it out.
Yeah, definitely. There's actually 3 chapters. I love this question so much. You guys ask really good questions. So definitely the fiction chapter, where I was like, okay, if I'm going to write about the importance of fiction, and yet I have a desire to write fiction myself, like, all right, what are you going to do after this? So that one for sure. Also, I think it's chapter 15, Let There Be Smallness. Yeah. Chapter 15, I think. Yeah. Let There Be Smallness, where I talk about small businesses. That was a big one for me. For my whole life as a creative, I've been like, I'm not a business person. I'm not an entrepreneur. I don't have that mindset. And, kind of as I share in that chapter, the importance and the power of small businesses really began to unfold to me and show me like, wow, a lot of the values and vision that I do have for my life, it will come through that medium of small business, that creative medium of a business. And so that's the one where I was like, if you're going to put this in here, like you got to live this out. Like, you don't have all the answers. I wrote that chapter starting really at the bottom, right? Like not at the top of the ladder, but at the bottom, figuring things out, messing up on my taxes, all that kind of stuff. So that for sure was one of the scariest ones that I was going to write. But also chapter 1, to write about the creation story is really intimidating and daunting. And I was like, Rach, you can't mess this one up. And you also can't, I was like, if I'm going to do this, if I'm going to start my book, the first chapter about I'm going to start with the creation story, like everybody else, I was like, you gotta come in strong. I know nothing new is under the sun, right? But what can you say that's going to be different? How can you say it differently? How can you really wow people while keeping the integrity of the creation story? And so it was such a joy to go through. I share about this book, but Creation Rediscovered by Jeffrey M. Leonard, and he's a Hebrew scholar. And so to read his book in preparation of writing mine, that brought such new revelations to this creation story that seems so cliche, and it's like we all know the passages and the lines in the story, but that was definitely daunting to think I'm going to try to unpack this and connect it to creativity and make it relevant, but make it fresh, but also make it accurate. So yeah.
Thank you.
I'm actually going to jump in right quick with the question that's a little bit off of our script, but I'm going to just throw this in here. So one, we talked already, but thank you so much for this body of work. It is definitely one that is, I think, given all of us a different perspective. So one of the things that really stuck, there were several things, but one of the things that really stuck with me was in Let There Be Play, when you talked about not confusing being childish with being childlike. And there are definitely times when I see Keisha, there are definitely times when I will engage in something and I think, oh, that's kind of childish. Like, let me be serious now. And you caused me to kind of go back and reconsider some of the pieces that I've dismissed, assuming that they were not appropriate for my expression of creativity as an adult. And so what I want to ask is, well, let me answer that. So there are some times when I will do something and I'm exploring it just kind of on my own. It's not for anything. It's not for anyone. So it's fun. And then when it has like an assignment or it is for someone or something, it's not fun anymore because it's like work. And so my question is, how do you manage that space where it was fun when it was just for you, but it's starting to not be as fun when it has a purpose for something else? And like, how do you get that fun part of it back?
I love this question, and I actually wrote some notes on this because this was going to be, like a little bit of my charge at the end. So I'm really glad that you're asking this. Yeah. I totally get what you're saying. I remember that moment. Like, I will never forget that moment that I wrote about in that chapter where that professor was like, "Don't confuse these two. Don't confuse being childlike with childish." Because the idea that I was sharing at the time was preposterous. Like, everybody at the college was doing this prayer small group, this worship small group. And here I am sitting there and I'm like, I think I want to read children's books. And it's just, after you do it and you see the impact, then you see, like, in retrospect, you're like, oh, thanks, Lord, for, like, you knew that this is what we needed. But beforehand, when you don't have that proof, you're like, this is a little bit crazy, right? Like, this is different. This is, who needs this? For me right now, writing is my job, right? I shared with y'all, I started out journaling, avid journaler. I would journal multiple times a day. Then I would write poems, and I would lock myself in piano rooms and play the keyboard. I would sleep with my guitar and my keyboard. I'd like write songs late into the night. And now writing is my job. I write books. I do marketing copy for my job, and I'm on social media writing all the time, and it's not fun for me anymore. And so I don't write for fun anymore. And it took a while to recognize that. And I'll just share this with you. I saved up. I had to save up. I don't make a lot of money as an author, so I had to save up my money. And I just got myself a camera because I've been wanting to do something that doesn't take up a lot of space, because I live in a small space. I've got 2 kids and they're always in my stuff and moving things around and breaking stuff. So I thought, okay, I can't have like canvases everywhere. I can't have art pieces. Like, that's not going to work with my 2 boys. What can I do that's portable, that doesn't take up a lot of space? I don't need to spend a lot of money learning it, a lot of time learning it. Camera. I've got the SD card. all the pictures that I take are there. It's not taking up any space. And I love photography because I love being off my phone. I love capturing things. I love being able to focus on something, and photography lets you do that. So I think it's crucial to, like, I'll be practical for a minute here, because everything's like, when you're talking creativity, it's a lot of, you're abstract. Sometimes you have to get concrete. I think it's worth it to like analyze your season, right? Which takes time. And that could look like a one-time thing. You go to a cafe, you take a moment in your schedule where you intentionally sit down and you say, what does my life look like right now? Like, what is required of me? What is bringing in the paychecks? What can't I not do? Right. And then to be honest with yourself and to say, like, if you're tired doing this, what interests you? The hardest part about that is not going to be recognizing like what kind of season you're in, or even dreaming up like, oh, this would be something cool. The hardest part is going to be taking that first step and trying that new thing, and branching off into either something that's new or returning to something from your past. Like maybe you played an instrument in your past and you've been missing that. And so now you want to try to pick it up again, but you're overwhelmed. It's like, I got to start at the beginning again, right? So I definitely think though that, like, I think if we just take the time to kind of process where we're at, that will kind of get you started on that journey of like, okay, I'm recognizing that this thing that I used to love, it's not fun for me anymore. And that means that I have a choice. Either I can just keep doing this thing and not make space for anything else in my life, and then I'll be, fill in the blank. Maybe your emotions get pent up, you feel frustrated because you're not creating, you feel sorrow because you feel like a piece of you has died. Or you can muster up the courage. Maybe you do it with another person, you do it with someone else who's feeling the same way. You want to take a dance class together, or chip in to buy a camera that you can share together. But yeah, I think that initial just like analyzing and seeing where you're at. I don't journal anymore in the season that I'm in right now with the two boys that I have, and I started journal, and then one takes it upstairs and it's gone, and I'm just like, this is not my season for journaling. I will create in other ways, and it will be okay, so
that's
That
really
is,
good. Thank you.
that's actually very good and very funny. So when you picked up the camera, I had a big duh. So I went through that and I picked up roller skating, and I was like, I could have chosen the camera. I wouldn't have had to break my back, had a concussion.
yeah, I tried to do roller skating last summer, I think it was, and it's
Yeah,
cute when you do it. I
I
fell
think
too.
I'm gonna
I was
get a
like, that's
camera.
yeah,
Thanks
get
for the idea.
oh.
So along those same lines as you were talking, on page 155, you pinned your uncompromising vision that bubbles under the surface, your unapologetic strategy, your master plans, your ideas, questions, curiosities, notions, schemes, dreams, logic, and reason are all signs of compassionate creativity. So my question to you is, do you feel like as a writer or as a creative, your mental health is important? And if so, what do you do to kind of keep those boundaries and make sure you're healthy?
Yeah, absolutely. It doesn't matter who you are or what you do, whether you call yourself creative or an artist or not. Mental health is always important. And I'm so glad that we're all coming to terms with that. Yeah, I appreciate this question. I love that chapter, Let There Be Thought. That was a chapter that I did not originally have slotted for the book. And it wasn't until I think I was on a call with some, beta readers, and I began to gather, oh, there are a lot of thinkers here, a lot of people that live up in here. And I'm one of them too, actually. And so I thought, how do I speak to them, the people that don't necessarily create with their hands, or don't necessarily always make something beautiful. Maybe they make something logistical, or something, reasonable, something that helps make the world a better place in a different way. So that was the answer that I had, that I just answered, was for this question. I think it's important to realize when you're creating to serve people and then you're creating to soothe, right? So to kind of piggyback on what I was just talking about, finding, maybe this will bring more definition to that. We use our art to serve people, right? We have a pastor on the call. You use your thoughts, you use your education, your critical thinking skills to bring messages and words to people that will encourage them to critically think about their lives and ultimately bring them to change and transformation. We have teachers here who do the same. People who, I think someone writes music or used to write music. All of you are creative. I was watching the YouTube videos and the fashion and the comedy, I'm just like, I see it all, right? And so I think one thing to know is, like, when are you using your art to serve people? And then what is it that's actually that you're doing to soothe for yourself, right? And so I share in chapter 8, I think it is, Let There Be Tears, where I talk about music, and I talk about how music always reached a part of my heart where, maybe writing didn't. And that's still true. There have been times where I tried to journal a problem, process a problem. I tried to, just rage on the page, get it all out. And it's like, I couldn't get as deep enough as when I picked up my guitar, or I sat down at the piano and I was able to come with a melody, and just that musical component allowed me to feel something deeper, and therefore like release it, like name it and release it, right? And so in that instance, it was like I had to realize what was actually able to soothe me. I think sometimes we also downplay how somebody else's art can soothe us and how that can be healing and bring relief. And so that is what I talk about a lot in that chapter, Let There Be Tears, is like the music of other people, the created work of other people. Let that soothe you, let that carry you through in those moments where you've got nothing, right? And this is why I'm such a huge advocate for stories and for movies and for books, is because in those moments in our life when we are down and low, and you are, I don't know, it could be anything: addiction, depression, loneliness, betrayal, rejection, just questioning your belonging, your identity, feeling like there's no purpose in this world, like who is God even, right? In those moments, stories, movies, it could be books, it could be a dance performance. Sometimes you can watch someone dance and just the way they move their body is so evocative towards a feeling that you've never been able to express or get out of yourself, and so with that, I think that there's a huge opportunity to be soothed by the art of other people. And so I think, and that's a huge part of the mental health conversation these days, right? Is what's your Spotify playlist? What is the music that you turn to that helps you, or just getting outside and getting in the great outdoors, and why it's good for you, right? You're viewing the art of God himself, like he created the trees and the ocean and the sunrise, and so you're breathing in that beauty, and of course it's going to be a balm for your soul. So I think mental health is important. I think it's important for the artist or the creative or the thinker, whoever you are, to distinguish between when you are using art to serve people versus when you're using it to soothe yourself, because both are important.
Can I say something? I wanted to say your book has helped me a lot. I've grown from it. you know, creatively is dope to see where somebody else comes from creatively. So I have a question to for you. Where have you been creatively currently? Like right now, where in this space we in, where have you been creatively?
Yeah, that's a good question. I was wondering what that question meant, and hearing you say that, I'm like, okay, what I thought it meant is exactly what you meant. So I think I shared with y'all, like, it's time to write some fiction, right? Well, in the fiction world, well, the nonfiction world too, anytime you create something, it's very valuable to bring others into that process. But especially in the fiction world, it's scary because you're making up stories and people can just point out your inconsistencies and your lies because it's all a lie. You're just creating a story, right? So last week, actually, I was in my first critique group for fiction, which is that looks different than sitting down at the computer and writing, right? It's different kind of creativity. You're listening to everyone else's creative thoughts on what it is that you made. And so for me, being in that room last week, it was so validating for the place that I'm at. And I write about that in chapter 13. I write about fellowship and finding creative community and why that's important. And I literally was practicing that last week. And so having people in my manuscript, which is imperfect, unfinished, I have tons of plot holes. They're asking me questions. They're like, I thought your character was in the front row. Now they're in the back row. I'm like, yeah, I know. I didn't edit that yet. Like, and they're finding all these imperfections, and you can't hide from that. It's just, it is what it is. But to put yourself in that position, it makes you a better writer. It makes you a better editor. It makes you a better human. We had some really hard conversations in that room about, is it really okay for you to use this word? Are you really the one to be speaking, to create a character that's speaking into this kind of experience? Where is your character's arc going? Why are they acting this way? Is there a reason? Is there a point? Is there a redemption that's going to come from this? Or are you just working out your own stuff through this character? What is this character's purpose? And so that a lot of those conversations were bringing up really hard things in that room. And I had to learn how to find compassion for people. I had to learn, okay, I'm creating this character that's experiencing this, but someone else is creating a different character that's experiencing something that I never thought about ever in my life before. And how do I enter into that story? And how do I care about that? About the people that this book, this story could speak to? How do I care about that? And so that's kind of where I'm at. It looks different, right? It doesn't look like last week I thought I was going on this retreat. I was at a retreat. I thought I was going there to write. I thought I was going to have my quiet time in the mountains and to sit and look at the beautiful view and to be, a writer's writer. I'm on my first writing retreat, right? That's not what happened. But what did happen was full of creativity. And so that's kind of the place that I'm in. It looks a little bit different, but I'm welcoming it and embracing it and growing through it. And like I said, becoming a better artist, but becoming a better human too. So.
That's so awesome. I'm so intrigued by this, hearing you share about your experience on this writer's retreat. I'm like, I might need to go on one of these. This sounds kind of cool.
I'll give you info. Just let me know.
So I'm going to interject here. We have a question from our audience, from Lacey. So her question is, what was the most challenging chapter to write and why?
Okay, most challenging chapter to write. I'll echo again that chapter 1, that was very daunting, because, talking about the creation story, and that's like epic stuff, right? It's cosmic. So that was daunting. Chapter 14, Let There Be Remembrance, writing about my grandfather. was really hard, and making sure that I brought honor to him. For those of you that don't know, I also narrated this for the audiobook. So reading that chapter out loud, 10 out of 10 do not recommend. I mean, I do recommend it, but I was like, wow, it's one thing to write something, and then to pronounce it is a whole different thing. But I'll share a cool story. I recently spoke to my great uncle, who is the brother of my grandfather, and he's really old and he has his hearing aids. He can't really hear on the phone. So I'm talking to him on the phone, and he's got this, mountain folk. He's got this, okay, yeah, so, and he's just telling his stories, can't really hear. My mom and I are like, Uncle Bubbles, wait, hold on, we're trying to tell you something. Hold on. Rachel's here. And he's like, oh, Rachel. And so we start talking about Let There Be Art. And, he starts talking about the chapter where I wrote about my grandfather. And he says, you know what? I couldn't have asked for anything better. You did right by him. And it was like, I will never hear my grandfather speak words of, like, I'm proud of you. Thank you for saying this about me. But that was the next best thing, and I will take it. So it was also just an honor to bring honor to my family in that way. So thanks for that question.
On the lines of the chapters in the book, did you have more chapters to put in the book that weren't added?
I did. I had one chapter that I would have loved to add to it. And sometimes I wonder, maybe I'll toss it out there as like a free chapter, but it would have been Let There Be Worship. And then, when I think about it though, I'm like, oh, but I think I love that this whole thing is worship. And so I love that it kind of lends itself to that. But I don't know, we'll see. Maybe one day, who knows, but Let There Be Worship.
I think you should definitely come to Tallahassee, and we should definitely have a session, and we can definitely call it Let There Be Worship. And
it's going to happen. It's going to happen.
We need a creative space. So I got a question that wasn't on our script. My last question is the Fallow House. Can you tell us about the Fallow House? And I know sometimes you call for submissions, but can you tell us how that goes and what that looks like?
Absolutely. Yeah. So the Fallow House is it's an online community I created 5 years ago now. We started out with a different name, and we've had our different iterations, and we finally have landed on the Fallow House. And for those of you that don't know, I actually speak about fallowing land in chapter 11, Let There Be Silence. So the Fallow House is meant to welcome and encourage creatives or everyday humans that are just seeking out beauty throughout our different seasons of creativity. Sometimes we are flourishing and creativity is abundant, and sometimes creativity lies fallow and it's slow, it feels dead, and there's no inspiration, right? And so we publish content. We just closed our submissions for our blog, and we feature words on our blog and our social media, but we will be opening back up again. July, I think we open up in October. So we welcome submissions. Anyone is able to submit. And we're just an online creative community as of now, where we aim to put out content that just helps cultivate creativity for people. So that is the small business in chapter 15 that I speak of. And so I've been faithful with just figuring out, where's this going and what does this need to be, and how do I take those small steps to allow it to be what it needs to be. So anyone here is welcome to follow us and see what we're about.
We sure will. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'll be expecting some poems. Okay, so
Right.
I
It needs to
got
be great.
yes, please do.
Speaking of poems, the way that you structured some of the chapters was that it wasn't I'm a person that loves knowledge, but I don't necessarily like school or reading. So, but I love acquiring knowledge. But I do realize for me with books, if I only see paragraphs, I tend to read them, but then I just kind of, phew. But your chapters, I say it this way, there are paragraphs, poems, and prayers.
Yeah.
And it keeps my attention. And I have always been a person that wrote prayers. I've always tried to get my clergy to write prayers, but they'd be like, nah. But so I've always written prayers, but I think it's something just from reading your book. It inspired me. I write songs, but never really wrote poems.
Right.
So, everything I write, I believe is to be sung, but I'd never really thought I'd write poems. And so Renita actually moved a couple weeks ago. And while reading Let There Be Play again, I get inspired and I'm in the barber's chair and I'm hearing these words and I'm like, oh, I'm writing a poem. And so, I told my barber, like, hold on. And so I wrote a poem for Renita just to express what I really hope she does, in her new journey. And but just the way that you wrote this book and the way that you've structured even the chapters, it is inspired. It's unlocked so much in me and in so many of us. And I'm just grateful. Thank you so very much.
No, yeah, thank you. And I appreciate that you see that and that you sense that. I think a lot of people do too. I was very strategic with how I structured the chapters and just felt very strongly that if I was going to talk about art, that the experience of the book, it had to feel and breathe and sound artful, even to the cover. I wanted there to be like a sensory experience in touching the cover. And I said, it can't be frilly and pink, and it's got to be for different people like that are going to hold this and read this. And I'll just put a little plug too. I just finished writing my second book, which is a book about grief and loss. And I felt so strongly, I've got to carry this structure of poetry almost embedded into between paragraphs, because it brings a sense of brevity that we need, especially in the here and now. We're just all bombarded with, like you said, information, and everything is heavy and there's a lot going on, and poetry helps to bring that lightness. So I appreciate that you like the structure.
Absolutely. I think also she kind of, Carrie, we probably need a critique group, for that, because I think about when I write, I like the rawness of, I think whatever I originally heard or got, that's it, but you should want to have your work challenged and refined. There's raw and then there's refined. Yeah. And being able to humble yourself and have compassion enough to receive, questions and tweakings. I think that's a part of the evolution. And you've got to cooperate with critiques in order to evolve in your creativity.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it leads you further. It only leads you further, So yeah, I absolutely agree with that. Y'all would have a killer critique group.
I'm excited about this critique group.
Yeah, we absolutely love you. You're a part of our church now. You're going to be with us at least once or twice a year now. It's done. Yes, we love you.
Right. So I'm so glad that you talked about your second book. We were going to ask about that. So we are obviously excited to get our hands on that. The other thing I wanted to make sure that we mentioned is that for those of you who have joined us on the stream tonight, there is an opportunity for you to purchase signed copies of the book. Now that you've had the honor of seeing the author and hearing her speak and just share even more about her experience and what led to some of the things that she wrote in the book. Now you know who the person is and you have an opportunity to get a book signed by her. So we're going to add in the chat the link that you can go to order those. And then the other surprise that we have is that we are actually going to give away a few books tonight. And so we have been pining through comments and looking at who's engaging with us and thinking of different things that we want to use to pick who we want to give away books to. So we have given teachers the opportunity to select a person, pastors as well, to select someone that will win a book, a signed copy of the book. And we will ask that if you are selected, that you will email administration@thelfcc.org so that we can kind of get all of this coordinated and make sure that the book gets to you. So again, if you are selected tonight, please make sure that you send us your name, your email address, and your address, your physical address, so that we can make sure that the book gets to you. So I'm going to go first since I'm already talking. And I am going to choose someone who has not only been engaged very much so tonight, but throughout just the series of Let There Be Art. Every time we've been on walking through these chapters, Lacey has been right here with us, right here in the comments, making sure that she is engaging, but also just sharing her perspectives and adding on to what we've been talking about. So Lacey, I am going to choose you as our first person to receive a signed copy of the book. I know that you're going to enjoy it. So I'm so happy and excited that we have this opportunity to offer this to you. And I will ask that Pastor and any of the teachers, if you all want to jump in, if you've selected your person, if you will share who that is.
Mine was Lacey. Thanks a lot, Renita.
I think mine's gonna be Rochelle. I'll go with Rochelle. Rochelle, you deserve it. Thank you for all you do. So creative, and we appreciate you.
My person is going to be Ivy Salters. Just from what we've been having in our vacation Bible school, she was very participated in a creative moment with what we did. And so Ivy is my person.
That's actually a really good choice because if y'all don't know, Ivy actually writes a lot and she writes prayers. So that's a really, really good choice. She won't tell y'all that, but call on her, Pastor.
I did not know that. Okay.
I think that my choice, this is hard, but I think I'm going to choose my mom because she actually is a teacher. And I know that we will have great conversations about this. And this will kind of provide us a moment to be creative together and to have mother and daughter time.
All right, and my person, so interesting. Now, my person is not someone that you see comments from on Facebook. My person is someone who does not really, they watch faithfully. When I say faithfully, faithfully every Monday through YouTube. And that is my mom in Jacksonville, Florida. That is Ollie McDonald. She watches faithfully every Sunday, every Monday. She gives a recap of everything that she sees. So I wanted to give to her because I know that there's so much creativity left. I know that she would be blessed by the book.
Awesome. Now I know I picked your person, Pastor. Do you have another person that you'd like to choose or you want to hold and give that some more thought?
I actually have two people
Okay.
that I would like to, and they are teenagers.
Nice.
And it is Nairobi and Elegance.
Awesome.
I think they're so creative, and I would love to gift that to them.
That's beautiful. That's wonderful. So again, for everyone who was selected, if you will do us a favor and send your information to administration@thelfcc.org so that we can make sure that we get these signed copies to you. I want to sign copy myself, so I'm gonna have to figure that out. So I'm excited. Look, all of the teachers before this, we were all like, so what about our books? Like, should we send our books to her, or how is this going to work? Because we want signed copies as well. So we're gonna figure that out and get all of that coordinated. So
I'm going to buy a new hard copy because I gave Carlos mine. So I'm going to buy my hard copy through the link so I can get a signed copy.
We got this. Everyone, a copy for you, a signed copy for you. We will get this. Don't worry. So yeah.
So we did ask, since we have you with us, if you would just share a charge with us before you go, so that we have something that we can keep with us and kind of take with us as we continue to journey through this book and just through life in general.
Absolutely. So I will share a quick charge, and then I will actually read something really quick from Let There Be Art. I absolutely love reading from the chapters. So I loved, I can't remember, I think this might have been your first gathering where you were kind of seated in a half circle and each of you were sharing like, what is your take on the title, right? And so I thought, oh, that'll be so nice to kind of speak into that. But I love how everyone was sharing like what their take on it was. That was inspiring me. I'm like, you could go ahead and write this book too. Like you had a chapter to it, because the things that you landed on are so different from what I originally thought. And that's what I wanted for this title, is I wanted for people to hear and say, let there be art, and for it to be reminiscent of when God said, let there be light. And I wanted it to trigger that remembrance of that iconic phrase, right, that everybody knows. And I also wanted for people to have their own relationship to make it their own. So there's that double play where, you know, a lot of you said there, let there be art. There's this sense of that you have permission now, that you don't need to, someone said, you don't have to struggle anymore. You don't have to fight it, like to just let it be, to just accept it, and to just allow and permit for creativity to be in your life, art to be something that you chase down and cultivate. And so that was like the one meaning that I was like, yeah, I really want people to feel that, to hear that. But then I also wanted that visual, and that's why the cover is the way that it is. We've got the darkness, you've got the light, and here's that tension, right? Where it's like, there's that push for the light to push back the darkness. And so for everyone who is watching, whatever it is that you do, if you prepare meals for your family, if you, who's the fashion one? I can't remember is it you, Tiffany, right? Just maybe fashion is your thing. Maybe you dance, maybe Pastor, you said you used to, music was your thing and you thought that was going to be the direction. Poems, a lot of you do poems. Whatever it is in your life, whether this book named it or not, let there be art in your life for the sake of the darkness being pushed back in your own heart, in your own life, and then ultimately in the lives of those around you. And so I'm going to read from Let There Be Bareness. This is chapter 1, and I'm on page 25. Brokenness wasn't our beginning. We began as breath bound to the heartbeat of God. We were not damned from the beginning, darkness was. We were not bad and broken from the beginning. We were believed in from the beginning. We began not prone to wander, but prone to worship. Our natural born bent wasn't for sin and sorrow. It was for the sound and the song of God. But there in the garden, we traded the sound and song of God, the whispering of his love, for the wrenching lie of Satan. And the broken pieces in us have been straining to hear and know the difference between the two ever since. It is no wonder that we hide, that we hush the whispers within that call us to create. We, in our fallen state, are broken. We believe the worst about ourselves. That is what darkness does when it goes without being pushed back. It lies. It hides all that is good and true, all that is light and life. Giving into the lies, we fear the perpetuation of what happened in the garden. We fear we might hear and heed the wrong whisper again. We fear we might listen to a lie and cause a downfall, a destruction to last beyond the length of our lives. And yet, the one thing we need is the one thing we avoid: art. Art, not as a way of claiming that we are right about anything, but art as a way of climbing back toward the light. Yes, art as a way of pushing back the darkness within ourselves, within our world. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Wow. Thank you. Thank you very much. This has been awesome. I'm so glad that we had the opportunity to have this conversation tonight. And I think that it has definitely been impactful, not just for the teachers, but also for our church. Your writing has been impactful for us, and it's kind of shaped and reframed how we consider art, how we consider creativity, and even how we consider some things about ourselves. So thank you very much. I'm going to turn it over to Pastor to do our closing prayer. And then I know that we have offering and, all those jazz and anything else you want to share.
Again, thank you all so much, especially to the teaching squad. Thank you for teaching us and just feeding us for the past couple months and for the rest of the summer. Thank you. And thank you to Rachel. Thank you so much for just coming out of retirement. I'm glad somebody found you and pulled this book out of you. And thank you for answering the direction. Listen, if there's anyone listening right now and you haven't given Christ your life and you would like to do that, you would like to receive him as your Savior, you are more than welcome to. We just encourage you to know that there's nothing that you can do or that you can be that would disqualify you from his love. You need to understand that having knowledge disqualifies you from being bound or a slave. You need to know God loves you. He loves you. Dead stop, he loves you more than anything. And there is nothing that will be able to stop his love from reaching you or carrying you through the rest of your life. So I would like for you just to pray this prayer with me, if that is what you want to do, and just repeat after me and say, Father, I repent of my sins. I come to you. I stop. I turn away from it, and I agree with you. Now save me, heal me, and seal me into your salvation until your day of redemption. I believe that your son Jesus was raised from the dead. And if you did that for him, you'll do the very same thing for me. In Jesus' name, amen. That's it, my brother or sister. That is it. You are in this fold. You are in this journey. You are on your way. Welcome. We would love to be a part of building your faith. And so if you would just give us your information, you would DM us, or if you did it while we're on live, you can share with us in the comment section, and we would love to get you information and help you in your walk of faith. Now, for our family, before we go, we want to be a blessing to Rachel, and we want to make sure that we give everybody an opportunity. Maybe some persons weren't there Sunday, weren't able to give your tithe or offering yet. Of course, you can do it digitally by text give. You can text a gift tonight of 850-424 1467. I was trying to remember. It's been a minute since I've said it. 850-424-1467 is the text to give number, or you can use a Cash App, $ LFC Church. As you can see on the screen, there are a few ways that you can give, but those are the two main ways that are most convenient that you can give. We're asking every member of Love and Faith, if you would give a $25 seed tonight, that would be great. If the Lord has led for your heart to do more, then you can do that as well. I'll give you a few moments to get your seed together. If you are giving tonight, let me see you put that fire emoji up. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All that are giving tonight, we appreciate you. I agree, Lacey. This was beautiful. This was awesome. This has been just awesome night. Awesome night. I was so excited for this night to happen. I was so excited to meet Rachel, and literally now I'm even more excited. I'm going to be walking around. I met Rachel. They're going to be like, who?
Well,
like, yeah.
I'm just going to say one more thing. As I thought about when I was thinking about what I was going to say for the charge, I also wanted to say, I was like, I feel like I don't even need to charge Love and Faith Community Church, because they are literally operating in their creativity. But what I wanted to say is, your art is beautiful. Like, y'all are beautiful. And as I was watching just the different YouTube videos, I'm like, they're so beautiful. I can't tell whoever someone was just really funny, just had a really just a comedy, a presence of comedy and humor. And I'm like, even that is just so beautiful. So that was a thought that I actually had written down, and I didn't say that, but your art is beautiful and you're already living it out. So
thank you so much. That means everything to us. That means everything to us. All right. So everyone has gotten your gifts together. Let me bless your gifts. All right, kind Father, it is at your discretion that men are made great. It's because of you that we have anything to give it all. And we ask you to bless us as you see fit, because you do all things well. Now, I do not bless the money, but I do bless every giver. And I say to every giver, blessed are you by God our Father, creator of heaven and earth. And every giver say, it is so. And so it is. Now shout shalom. Peace to you, but also every need is met. This is what we believe. And that's what we decree for you, Rachel, that every need is met. We just speak prosperity to you, increase notoriety, and that your name will just be whispered into many different industries and different areas, that every project that you do, that the Lord will allow the jet stream to get behind that project and push it further throughout the world. I thank you that the world will begin to hear the name Rachel Marie Kang. I thank you. I bless your family. I bless your children, and I bless your household in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, family. We've got to say goodbye to Rachel. Don't we love her? Oh, you're so awesome. Thank you.
Thank you
for coming. God bless you. Teaching Squad, I love you all so much. God bless you all. Have a good night.